Okay, can everyone see the screen okay?
It's good to me.
Yes.
Great.
All right. So let's get started. My name is Brian Alexander. I'm a senior management analyst with the Community Development Department for San Mateo. And I am going to be co-facilitating this portion with Summer Smith, who is an associate planner in our planning division. And then we're also joined by 3 additional staff members, Sandy Council, who is our housing manager and will be our designated note taker for this session. And then Mary Wei and Alice Chen, who are both here to provide some additional support and make sure that everything is running smoothly for us. So Mary and Alice are going to stay with you for the duration of tonight's workshop, but Summer, Sandy, and I, as Joanna mentioned, are sort of going to be hopping around to different rooms to talk about our assigned study areas. And so you're going to have a rotating set of facilitators as you talk about different parts of the city. As Joanna mentioned, we're going to be covering, this group actually covers only 3 study areas, although one of them is broken into 2, so we treat it like 4. And we have between 25 and 30 minutes to do it. So we want to spend about 5 to 10 minutes on perhaps our larger study area. And we can spend more time on any one study area, but just keep in mind that it comes potentially at the expense of talking about some of the other groups. So sort of we have a set amount of time for this particular breakout. So we want to make sure we have a chance to get to everybody. As a reminder, we're not asking you to pick a preferred alternative tonight. We're asking you whether we have captured the right range of alternatives for these particular portions of the city in at least one of our 3 alternatives. So the bolded and underlined questions on this slide are what we are going to be focused on. And again, we're not making any decisions today, but your feedback will be used to inform how we move forward and what specifically we ultimately study. And remember, you can make comments via the chat function at the bottom. You can also raise your hand if you'd like to add a verbal comment. So with that, I think we are ready to go to the next slide. And then just a quick reminder before we dive into our particular study areas. Alternative A generally has the least amount of change versus our current land use map. Alternative B has the second highest amount of residential growth, and it also spreads it more evenly across all of the study areas. And then alternative C, as Joanna mentioned, has the highest amount of residential growth and concentrates it mostly in the areas around our Caltrain stations. So that includes study area 3, which we're actually going to be talking about in our group, and also study area 4, which is the downtown area of San Mateo. So here, just to orient you to what we're talking about, we're looking at the 2 circled study area 1s. So that is El Camino between the downtown area and roughly 92. Study area 3, which includes a bulk of the middle of the San Mateo or the El Camino Real corridor in San Mateo, and also the areas around the Caltrain stations. So Hayward Park and Hillsdale, and also the Hillsdale Mall. And then that little bit of study area 1 at the bottom, which includes a small portion of El Camino Real. And then study area 8 off to the northeast, which includes the 92 and 101 interchange. We're going to be talking about that area a little bit as well. And we're going to obviously show you a little bit of a closer view of each of those study areas as we move through and talk about each of them in turn.
Okay, so we're going to start off with one of the smaller study areas just to get you guys a little bit oriented. While I do this, if you guys want to take 30 minutes and think if there is one specific study area, 1 or 2 that you have a priority that you really want to talk about that we might spend more time on, you can just enter that in the chat while I'm going through this one. But I'm just going to dive right in.
Who do we chat to?
Excuse me?
It's asking for a specific person to send the chat to. Who should we be chatting to?
You can choose Mary Wei, who Mary, City of San Mateo.
Actually,
or
you just want to put the chat into the chat, and I will be able to view it, Brian.
Okay. So
Okay.
say everyone in the meeting.
Everyone, yes,
okay.
And it'll be onto the breakout room. That's how it should. Okay.
Okay,
thanks,
great.
Mary.
All right, so this is study area 1, El Camino Real Center. Right on the left-hand side of the screen, this is the existing land use. You can see that most of it is regional and commercial, I'm sorry, regional and community commercial / high density multifamily. That's going to be the brown that you see towards like the southern end of it, sprinkled in with some, you have some office high and a little bit of residential as well. These are the different land use scenarios. You have A to the left, B in the middle, and then C to the right. In A, towards the northern section, it's going to be a lot of mixed use low. And then going further south, it's going to turn into mixed use medium. Mixed use low has 1 to 3 stories and 9 to 39 dwelling units per acre. And then mixed use medium is going to have 7 to 4 stories and 40 to 99 dwelling units per acre. And this dark purple is office high, which is 8 or more stories. So think of just basically a really tall office building with multiple businesses located in it. This, like Brian previously touched on, alternative A is going to have the least amount of population growth, so about 2,000 and 650 net new housing units. Okay, I can't change that. Oops.
Summer, just real quick, while
Yeah.
we're looking at study area 1, since it's broken up into 3 pieces, the alternative boxes at the bottom are for the entire study area. So while it may look like there's some variation here in this one particular portion, what you're seeing at the bottom is for the entirety of study area 1. Alternative A has those additional units, and same thing with B and C. So it's not just for this one piece of study area 1, but it's for the entirety of the El Camino corridor.
Correct.
If I can just interject, it's Mary. I just have some interest in area 3.
Okay.
So that is the only preference at this point.
Okay, great. So we can do that one next. Okay, so moving on to alternative B, we have mixed use medium at the top towards St. Matthews, and then we have our, this is going to be residential high towards the bottom. Residential high is going to have, I believe, 8+ stories with 100 to 200 dwelling units per acre. And then we have alternative C over to the left, which is going to be mostly mixed use, medium 4 to 7 stories, 40 to 99 dwelling units per acre. And then just to point out, if you see this dotted semicircle, that is the radius, which is a half a mile, within half a mile of the Caltrain station. So that gives you an idea about maybe why there might be more dense residential here. So with these 3 in mind, does this seem to be the right range of alternatives that we should be studying going forward? And if not, what is missing and needs to be included?
And you should feel free to drop a response either into the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to comment directly as well. Or it could be that folks just want to focus on study area 3, which is also fine.
Sorry, I'm still, who do you want us to chat to? We only have choice of chatting to individual people.
It doesn't give you the option of choosing everyone.
Mine doesn't.
Okay.
Well, I mean, do you want to just say it out loud? We will accept verbal comments as well.
Oh, no, I was just wondering how I would put my comments in. No, but so this was I asked the question that in the main group, the first question was one I put in. Like, for example,
with me chatting, and Carolyn Chevelle from Beresford. So yeah, save the fish market, y'all. It's going to take 3 years, so I feel a little better about it.
Hey, Nancy, I don't know if you meant to unmute yourself right now, but we're discussing the center part of El Camino between 9th Avenue and 16th.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead. Yeah, I think you were.
No, that's okay. I want to save the fish market too. Um,
That is actually in a later one of our study areas, so we will be getting to the fish market.
I do not want to save the fish market.
Okay, so yeah, so I asked the question in the main thing and it got answered, but I'm just really curious again, like that big purple thing could turn to a big blue thing. I mean, that's like that's a big building there. Are we talking about like completely tearing down that 8-story building, the Chase building, I think it is now, or whatever?
No, it's should the usage of that particular parcel change over the course of the next 20 years, it's essentially setting parameters for what could be built on that parcel.
I see. Okay.
So if for whatever reason they decided to sell that building, or somehow that building was turned into something else, we basically want to create some guideposts for what we would allow to be built there in its place.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you guys don't have any input on this study area, we can move on to study area 3. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, Brian.
Sure. So this, we actually broke out into each individual slide because it's a huge chunk of San Mateo. So essentially it runs from where we just ended at the southern end of that study area 1. So about 16th Avenue on El Camino Real, all the way down to about 36, which is just south of the Hillsdale shopping center. So it includes that whole corridor of El Camino Real. And also to the east, it includes the Bay Meadows area. It includes the event center. And it also includes some of that new development around Concar as well, just north of 92. And so when looking at the different alternatives here, I'm just going to go over some of the highlights. I know it's a lot of information to take in, but alternative A, the Burrell Square Shopping Center is a mixed use medium designation under this possible alternative. 25th Avenue, that area with shops along there to the west side of El Camino, is a mixed use low designation. And then Hillsdale Mall is a commercial regional project. So that a commercial regional designation, which is essentially a shopping destination for those in the region. So it has sort of larger stores or things that are of interest to people outside of the immediate neighborhood, and also a mixed use medium designation. So that again would be 4 to 7 story buildings that could include residential, it could include ground floor retail, but a mixture of uses there. If we go to B, so
Brian, I'm sorry,
yeah.
there are a few questions here, but they're kind of coming in. I think they're just coming directly to me. I don't know why it's happening. So I'm just going to give you kind of a rundown.
Sure.
And just a reminder that we're halfway through the breakout room discussion at this point. One is, sorry, what does the brown in alternative B mean again? And then, yes.
Sorry, the brown is a residential high designation. So it's an 8+ story residential land use.
And then any chance you can get rid of the purple L-shaped thing on Madison Avenue, and change it also to residential.
And I'm guessing that was back from the previous study area.
And sorry. And then these ones are kind of, it's hitting me later. And then Lilia said alternative A. I'm not sure what she meant by that. So those are all the messages so far. We're just getting the hang of this. So sorry for the delay for people.
Yeah, and we also have we are taking notes throughout. So we're also taking these comments down as they're coming in. So we'll note the L-shaped purple shape from study area 1 and make sure that that's captured as a preference to turn it to housing as a piece of feedback from the community.
And then in regards to alternative A, I think you mean like what's the difference between A, B, and C? Generally, A is going to be the least change. B is going to be kind of mid-range residential growth and increases in height, and C is always going to be the highest increase in residential and the tallest, the most tall buildings out of the 3 options. So, but continuing on to alternative B.
And then a couple other comments.
Can I unmute to ask a question? At least with the last study area, B, I thought had the most homes.
Yeah, so it's not true necessarily for individual study areas that A, B, and C will shake out that way, but across the city as a whole, C is going to have the most additional population and homes versus B. But you might find in some of these smaller study areas that there's some variation that doesn't quite match up with what the aggregate shows for the rest of the city.
I think it's dominated by that purple and blue, big purple and big blue. In the middle, that people are living in that dark blue rectangle, and the others, it's just businesses.
Right, and the dark brown as well in study area B, and alternative B is high residential, so that would account for some of the additional population and homes in that area.
And just a reminder, we are very limited on time. I know this is our first study session, I'm sorry, our first breakout group. So it's good to get these kind of questions, understanding what the maps are actually saying out of the way. But we really do still want to gather your input on these different alternatives, even if we can't get to all of them. But
And then there are a couple just comments. Would you expand on the commercial? Sorry, it's moving on me. Commercial service, regional, and neighborhood designations. And then someone said, sorry to be clear, I prefer alternative B for study area 1. And then is it possible that the city chooses different letter alternatives for each study area? For example, can we choose alternative A for 1 and B for 2?
yes.
So just a reminder that we're not choosing a preferred alternative today, but ultimately that is something that the city can decide to do. If we decide that alternative B in a certain area is the preferred scenario, but alternative A in a different scenario or a different study area is the preferred scenario, there can be some mixing and matching. And I also got a direct question via chat to me from Heather. It would be helpful if we can see each area by the increase in home and commercial for each alternative. You can, so we don't, this is actually the only one where we don't have that on this slide because it's broken into 3 pieces, but you can go either to our Strive San Mateo page, and the online survey will provide that for each of the study areas. And as we go through, so Summer, if you want to go to alternative B for study area 3, this here is going to show just for this study area. So there will be, based on this alternative, assuming all these land uses, the net new homes is going to be that 5,160 figure, the 13,300 in population, and then the 2,500 roughly in jobs. So study area 1 is sort of a special exception just because it's in pieces and it's not one continuous study area.
Okay, Brian, so you touched on alternative, well, you finished our alternative A for the study area. Do you want to continue with alternative B and pick up where you left off? Or?
Yep, happy to. So in this particular alternative, Burrell Square is residential medium. It was mixed use in the previous alternative. The 25th Avenue corridor to the west of El Camino Real is a mixed use medium designation. And then Hillsdale Mall is a combination of regional commercial and a mixed use medium as well. And so again, mixed use medium and residential medium are both a 4 to 7 approximate stories for those land use types. And you also may notice as we flip through these that a lot of the parcels to the east of the Caltrain tracks are mostly staying the same. And in a lot of cases, that's because they're either are recently built projects. In one case, it's the event center. That's that large parcel there. That's sort of the teal color. Or they are projects that are in development that are accounted for on all 3 of the maps. So a lot of the change is really focused on this area around El Camino and not so much on the east side of this study area. And then, so alternative C, Burrell Square is now mixed use high. It had been residential medium in the previous alternative. 25th Avenue is mixed use medium, which it had been previously in alternative B as well. And then Hillsdale Mall is a combination of mixed use medium and mixed use high. And again, these boxes on these slides are showing you the net new for homes, population, and jobs for this particular study area. I know this is the largest study area we have, so I'm going to pause here and ask. You can send a chat or raise your hand to ask a question verbally as well. And if you're having issues having to choose someone to chat to, you can chat to anybody that has a comma city after their name, and it would go directly to one of us, and we will be able to ask it.
And if they could direct them actually, Brian, to me, we're just getting the hang of this because they only have limited access, it looks like. We have a question, would recommend, or actually comment, would recommend alternative be mixed use for Burrell Square, as I feel it was not good to lose all commercial businesses there. Sorry, alternative B. And then do you have a side-by-side comparison for study area 3? Commercial services area around Palm could be utilized for mixed use, is another response.
I'll just highlight again what Brian said earlier. If you guys want to look at these in these study areas in further detail, since we are on such limited time, there's a survey tool that will be live on our website, strivesanmateo.org, where you can go on, click on the link to the survey and take as much time viewing each one. And study area 3, there will be side-by-side comparisons on that website for that study area.
One more comment, study area 3, alternative A, traffic is terrible now and no plans or infrastructure taken into account.
Okay, thank you for that question.
I got a comment from Cliff. Commercial service area around Palm could be utilized for mixed use. So we'll make sure to take note of that too.
Okay, shall we move on?
Sure, we can go on to 8.
Yeah.
So study area 8 is basically the area immediately adjacent to the 101 and 92 interchange. And right now it includes shopping centers, it includes the office park and the Marriott to the west of 101. And then it also includes, I know somebody mentioned the fish market earlier, and the service area that's directly south of that as well.
I believe we're supposed to move on to our next
breakout
room.
That being said, if you have comments on this particular study area, since we didn't get to look at the map, put them into the chat and we'll make sure that they're recorded. Or you can take, like we mentioned, the survey online and provide your feedback that way.
And all of these chat information that we haven't had a chance to get to are also going to be recorded and used as well. So don't think that your messages aren't being considered.
Yes.
All right. So Brian and Summer are going to leave our group, and then we should get 2 new people to join in here. So
thank you, Brian and Summer.
and then if I could just ask, we're trying to do this where you raise your hand when you want to speak, just so we can move a little bit better. And again, we're just getting the hang of the breakout room. So if you have a comment that you cannot put in the chat, if you could raise your hand and I will do my best to get to you. So I appreciate all your patience and all your input as well. And I'll do the best to get to all of you. And we're just waiting for them to you should be, Mike, you should be able to go over your name on the side under participants. If you don't see the participant list, you click on participants on the bottom, and then next to your name, there's more, or there's asked to unmute. So that, well, should be more. It should, if you ask to unmute, it should raise your hand, most likely. You might want to try it. Let's see how it works.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian. I'm the facilitator for circulation, which is what this group is now in. So I'm about to share my screen. Okay, so hopefully people are seeing the map of San Mateo with the alternatives. So I'll introduce myself and provide a little overview, and then we'll get into hearing from you and your questions and comments. So I'm Brian Manford. I'm a transportation planner with Nelson Nygaard. We're working with PlaceWorks specifically on the circulation element of the general plan update. Today we're hoping to cover the three alternatives. These were made, as Joanna said, using community input. So what we've heard over the past several years and trying to reflect all those ideas in different alternatives. And then we also are trying to bring in ideas and good ideas from other cities. And then Sue Ellen and Tracy, if you want to introduce yourself, are also here from the city.
Sure, my name is Tracy Scrimalia. I'm a senior engineer in the Public Works Department.
Brian, can you make your image bigger? Because it looks like it's not taking up the whole screen. Is it possible for you to do that?
I can zoom in.
I'll introduce myself while he's doing that. I'm Sue Ellen Atkinson. I'm a principal transportation planner with Public Works for the city.
Thanks. And so they can help. Great. So they can help with any questions as well. So as I said, these were shaped from what we've heard in the past and what we're seeing other cities do. That's really exciting. And you know, we want to hear from you as the experts and the people in your community who have ideas about what you want to see here. And also a reminder that we're not voting on these alternatives or deciding on these alternatives. We want to make sure that we're capturing the full range of what we want to study and evaluate. And so especially if there's something missing, you have an idea, we'd love to hear that. And
there's a question, really just quickly, a general question, Brian, about what do the colors mean?
Right, so I'm about to go into that.
Okay.
So
Brian, sorry, this is Joanna. Just right before you do that, and just in case anybody in the room doesn't know, if you're using Zoom and you go across the top of your screen, you might have a little green bar that says you're viewing Brian's screen, and then next to that is view options. If you use the pull down menu there, you have some other options about zooming in. So you can play around there. It will mean you're not looking at exactly what Brian's looking at on his screen, but it can be a way of enlarging the image if that's useful to you.
And Joanna, we're having a little bit of an issue with if I mute everyone, they're not able to raise their hands. They say that they don't have that option as one of them to raise their hand. So I'm not sure if that's just a setting thing. So I've just allowed them to unmute themselves so that they can speak if they need to at this
Sounds
point.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first alternative is a walkable city, walkable communities in the city. And so to orient you, the dark orange line is kind of a mixed use path or trail. And if it's solid, it's existing, and where it's dotted, it's proposed. Also that these plans incorporate the pedestrian master plan and the bike master plan that have been approved by the city. So those are kind of consistent across all of the alternatives. And the gray dots here are also consistent across the alternatives. These represents existing at grade crossings where Caltrain tracks cross the street at grade. And so the city long-term has been studying separating those, but we're not asking you to consider, or we're not considering them in individual alternatives here. So the purple is the bikeways. So the solid is existing and dotted is kind of future approved in the bike plan. These thick dark blue lines are missing sidewalks that would be completed. The large blue and white dots are intersections where to the highway on-ramps where safety improvements are proposed to make it safer for vehicles and pedestrians at those intersections. There's new crossings of US 101 at Monte Diablo Avenue. I think it changes name over there, but in the study area 7, it's a little hard to see, but there's a light blue downtown on B Street. Those would be pedestrianized 2 blocks. And then this green line is El Camino, and that's kind of a corridor wide pedestrian and bike improvement. So that's alternative A. Alternative B focuses more on connecting people to transit and enhancing transit. And so we have, again, we still have the mixed use paths, and we have multimodal paths, and we have the pedestrian and bike approved policies, but we're also adding east-west transit connection. Again, kind of thinking about like study area 10 and 6, maybe having more growth in the San Mateo City College of connecting those to Hillsdale Station, and also thinking about how Caltrain in I think 2023 has some service improvements coming, and then kind of 2040 business plan has some long range improvements to their service. So how can we make sure that more of San Mateo can access that? And then with, along El Camino, now we're looking at what about a bus rapid transit or other type of enhancements that make bus more frequent and reliable and a better experience on El Camino. Then
Does that mean there won't be the bike and pedestrian on El Camino?
Well, in kind of for that alternative, but again, we're not necessarily weighing them against each other. So in alternative C, we're looking at doing both. So kind of some bike, ped, and transit enhancements to El Camino. But as we think about the amount of space that's on El Camino and how it's managed across the multiple counties and jurisdictions, there may be choices of one or the other. But here we're showing both of them, as well as 2 key distinctions make alternative C a little different. One is the idea of an automated shuttle or microtransit or bus, maybe even driverless, depending on where the technology is. So that there's a lot of different services called microtransit where it kind of deviates its route and is a smaller vehicle to help pick people up and take them to downtown or to a regional transit like Caltrain. And then we're also looking at, rather than just 2 blocks downtown, the downtown in general, is there an idea around traffic calming? There's, well, maybe it's too confusing, but in Barcelona, they have a concept of super blocks where you close parts of the intersection so you can't go through, you're forced to turn right. So you can still make, if you're in a vehicle, you can still get there, like to drop something off, but you can't necessarily go through. And in that space that you've closed off, you can have a small park or a small plaza. That's just one concept for it, but the idea is that we would have more space downtown for walking and maybe outdoor dining and some safety improvements there. So those are the 3 alternatives. And now we'll go to kind of questions and comments.
So there's a few comments here. Yes to super blocks. And then another comment from Lilia, alternative A, San Mateo is flat and has beautiful weather. More places to walk would improve the city for everyone. And that's pretty much it for right now.
Great. I see there's a hand up.
Let me see here.
I think that's me. My name's Dana Jordan. So if you could just clarify for me, is also part of this kind of like feedback and stuff about like one-way streets and like that kind of thing? Because for my example, like on Monte Diablo, I see it's the purple dotted, which means you're gonna, I guess, do it into a bike lane or something. Am I seeing that right? And then it's also a solid black line, which I guess it's a road. I mean, it is a road, but so could I, if it's gonna be a high use bicycle lane, maybe make it one way instead of two ways. That's a super skinny road. So that's just my input for that area.
Yeah, so here it's shown the purple is actually existing bikeway. So I'm not sure that could even be a designated bike route or striped bike lanes. And then the dotted green is kind of a pedestrian enhancement. So that's what we're seeing here. But that's great feedback about one ways. I think that's another thing for downtown and alternative C. Maybe it has some one ways already, but making some of the one ways two ways so that it's easier to get through, not multiple volumes, but to make a turn and get to your destination. And then, one ways kind of work in two directions. Sometimes they make things less safe, but where it's narrow, that's helpful to hear.
And then a couple other comments. Yes to bus rapid transit, but no to new planning for driverless and unproven technologies. Let's just make the space for buses to not be stuck in traffic. It works really well in other cities. And then another comment, is there an alternative D here that includes all of these things? Because I really don't want to choose. I'd like all of the above: bus lanes, bike lanes, pedestrian improvements, outdoor plazas, etc.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I would say alternative C tries to capture them the most. So it has the transit and the bike and ped and downtown improvements. One other point I forgot to make in alternative B is that part of enhancing the transit is enhancing access to the planned regional express lanes. And it also would apply to carpool, but are there some bus, they're called queue jumps, so that they can get onto the highway better at signals, or bus only lanes that can help improve their access. And as far as all of the above, that's great to hear. We noted it in the last group. There's a few constraints as we're looking at the general plan. One is the amount of space we have in the road and at intersections. In terms of, sometimes there is only so many feet, and it has to be divided up in certain ways based on safe design and balancing the modes. And then there's also just the financial aspects of it, of how much it costs to fund each different project and different types of projects. So those are the types of things that the city tries to balance.
Brian, does this also include how you regulate traffic on these roads? Like, for example, one of the biggest problems on El Camino is people making left turns and tying up traffic for a minute or two while they wait for an opening. Does this include the left turns or turn lanes, things like that?
That's helpful to hear. It does and it doesn't, in that it's showing improvements to El Camino, and something like a bus rapid transit would mean that you would need to address turns, but it's not so specific as to say this is the policy. And the general plan also includes goals and policies, and so those are also things that we'll be considering as part of that.
And Brian, we have about 10 more minutes left. I don't know how much more you have to say, but I'll give one more comment, and then I'm just going to let you speak going forward, because all of these chat questions will be asked unless we have time at the end. The last comment I have here is yes to alternative C, with the most bike and walking friendly. 28th Avenue was just constructed under the Caltrain's connecting east and west San Mateo and making Hillsdale accessible to bike riders. However, no bike lanes is truly disappointing. Is that being considered?
So specifically at 28th, the new grade separation?
Right, it looks like they're saying that.
It looks like it's dotted purple. Isn't that a bike lane?
Yeah, that's a bikeway. Yeah, this uses the bike plan. So I don't know if Sue Ellen or Tracy know more about that project in detail, but this just takes what was adopted from the bike plan. So I'm not sure how it was implemented.
Sure, I can answer a little bit more in depth on that specific question. That project is a Caltrain project. The city was involved for oversight, but it's led by Caltrain. We were just notified that a class 3 bike boulevard is going to be installed on 28th Avenue as part of that project between El Camino and Delaware. And once all of the grade separation projects are completed, the city will have the opportunity to do traffic studies to determine if other bike facilities might be feasible in the future. And we look forward to that. But in looking at the general plan from a higher level, that's what we're trying to do in the circulation element. So if you have additional questions on specific projects, you can feel free to reach out to staff directly.
And then there is a couple more questions, more bike, or actually there's a few more. Does alternative 3 show the proposed shuttle route? I couldn't find it. I do like the idea of a shuttle for mobility impaired individuals, and then more things about bike and pedestrian infrastructure protected by a barrier, not just paint.
So the alternative C shows the same, it kind of extends. In alternative B, there's kind of a transit or shuttle connection to Caltrain in connecting study area 10 and 6 and 9. And then I think it gets extended in alternative C, but it's a little bit more something like a microtransit is more of a deviated route, and so it does, like, it would stick to this general, east-west connection, but it could potentially deviate out depending on what that final project looked like. It's more that we're representing the idea of that kind of microtransit connection, so it doesn't have a specific alignment. And I saw someone asked to see the key again. Here, it's here. And again, you can also go to the website and, it's a lot to type in, but also just strivesanmateo.org and look at it as well.
With all the new bike lanes, is there going to be bike parking as well?
Great question. So, and I think there was also a question about protected bike lanes, and here we're showing kind of all the bike infrastructure at the same thickness. And I think people who bike know that there's a difference between, one facility and another and how you experience it. And again, the general plan sets that high level guidance, but it's really the implementation plan you can think of as the adopted bike master plan. And so things like bike parking are going to be regulated a little bit outside of the general plan. Like the general plan can say we want adequate bike parking, but it's up to the those kind of implementation plans to put it. And I haven't read it page cover to cover, but I would bet that the bike master plan includes bike parking, and that's something that's being considered. And I know Caltrain also is studying bike parking at all their stations right now. So, we have a couple minutes left. If there's anything else that you want to see or think that we didn't capture or didn't catch in these alternatives, that'd be great to hear.
I don't see any comments right now, but we'll give people a couple more minutes since we actually do have a few minutes. It's going to end at 7:42 and it's 7:37 right now.
Great.
is another comment, actually a couple more. I know it's not fully fleshed out yet, but would like to see a transit route connect downtown to in a loop. And then I like squared sidewalks. Then cars don't block them when they park and peds can move easier. I think they're talking about like the rolled curve, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's more what they're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's included in the existing pedestrian master plan. Notes that that is an issue of the rolled curbs. And another thing to the city, and I don't know if you can probably say it more succinctly, Sue Ellen, but the city is also embarking in a complete streets planning process, or they're scoping it out. So a lot of these that it will consider all modes. So a lot of these are going to be kind of fine-grained questions are going to be addressed in that.
That's exactly right.
And as far as a circulator shuttle, if you could clarify, I think you said connecting downtown, or circulator transit route connecting downtown in general, or?
Let's see, I see it says, so it just says, but would like to see the transit route connect to downtown too in a loop.
Oh, the kind of proposed ones.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's great feedback. And I'll also note too that, all the transit or most of the transit stuff is run by Samtrans. There's some AC transit routes and some Caltrain shuttles. And so those are all partnerships with other agencies. So the exact alignment of the transit type of, is it going here or there is done. Those decisions are made in partnership with those agencies. So whereas the city can, technically like build the sidewalk or not, it takes the partnership for the transit. But yeah, anywhere else you want to connect by transit, that's great to hear, or transit routes or streets that you think need improvements besides El Camino, anything like that is great to hear. Okay, and where is it time to move? I just got a message.
Yes, time to move.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your next session.
Thank you for telling me I'm muted. I started my video instead of my my microphone, but just know that the comments that you have there will be kept and recorded and made note of. So don't worry about that. But without further ado, here we have Linda, Nikki, and Brendel. So I'm going to mute myself and let them get started.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening, everyone. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. It's a lot of Zoom moving around tonight. Okay. So as Mary mentioned, my name is Linda. I'm an associate planner with City of San Mateo. I'm joined tonight by Rendo Bustos. He's a senior planner. And also Nikki Vu, he's a housing specialist who will be taking notes tonight on our discussion. And so just as a reminder, this breakout group discussion, we're focusing on study areas 2, 6, 9, and 10. So the southern portions of San Mateo. And the two key questions that we're looking for tonight is, is this the right range of alternative scenarios? And if not, are there any ideas or changes missing that you would like to see? And so we're not making any decisions on alternatives, A, B, or C. we're really looking for input tonight. And so just to start, the first study area we'll be looking at is number 2, that's Bel Mateo Molly Stone area. And so the existing land use is neighborhood commercial with residential uses allowed under service commercial east of South El Camino Real, neighborhood commercial also here, and also with high density multifamily uses on that portion. So in all alternatives, residential uses are being introduced to the Bel Mateo area shopping center. Alternative A would, produce the less changes, whereas C is the alternative that would introduce mixed uses on the west side of El Camino Real, and this would create the potential for a small mixed-use village. And one thing to note is for B, it would be introducing a low mixed use in the center of the study area. So if anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to enter it in the chat. If you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand and we can go ahead and unmute you to give a comment or question.
So far, there's no questions or comments.
Yeah, and feel free to let me know if, we need to move on to the different next study area. I know that we have 20 minutes per breakout group to discuss all 4. So maybe to, just give you ideas of what we've heard so far tonight. A lot of people were in favor of seeing residential uses at Bel Mateo Bowl. They do think it's a low, or it's not being used to its potential, is one comment that we've heard tonight.
The comment that alternative A is the best, 42nd Avenue is impacted.
Okay, thank you, Mary. So I can talk more about, what the differences between alternatives A, B, and C. So for example, along Pacific Boulevard here, you're seeing, the existing low residential uses, whereas in alternative B, it would be looking at bringing in medium residential uses. And so of the different, A, B, and C, B would produce the most net new homes. And
I got a question from a chat directly to me. Is there a higher density residential or mixed use option?
For this study area, it hasn't been considered in the alternatives, but we can definitely, if you're interested in it, and you think, and you're in support of that, we can take that as a comment to consider for this particular study area, number 2.
And then there's a couple other comments here. Alternatives with more homes near services like grocery stores will help reduce traffic. And then another comment, if they are within 0.5 mile radius of Hillsdale or Belmont stations, housing would be a good idea. And definitely, another one is definitely interested in higher density mixed use here. Thanks.
Great comments.
And then another one, I would support higher density housing than what is listed in the alternatives.
Thank you for that comment. I can move on to the next study area if there's no more comments. Okay.
I don't see any more.
Okay, thank you, Mary. So the next study area, number 6, this is the Campus Drive area. It's mostly characterized by office uses along Campus Drive. There's existing commercial Lowerwood Shopping Center on the south. Switching slides. So the different alternatives A, B, and C for this study area looks at introducing residential uses in all the different alternatives. And this is actually consistent with a planning project that was approved recently for Peninsula Heights. That's a residential project. And so A would look at maintaining, some of the offices, whereas B would look at introducing more residential uses while keeping, increasing or concentrating office to a medium use over here on Long Campus Drive. And alternative C would look at, keeping it all at medium residential. And so here we have Lowerwood Shopping Center. It's proposed as mixed use low in A and B, and C would look at commercial neighborhood use. So feel free to give your comments.
There's a comment that there are so many gorgeous views from study area 6. What about walking, hiking, biking trails?
Yeah, great comments. So I know that in the general plan, we do have an open space element, and, so that would look at the parks preserving, natural resources. And so I don't have an answer, to that now, but it's something that, through the long range general plan process, the staff will be considering that.
Yeah, it's an important consideration. I think developers have that thought too, because Peninsula Heights did integrate a few miles of walking trails. And so that's the approved project shown in these.
Thanks,
alternatives.
And then Linda, we are about halfway through. So
okay.
Just to keep you on thing. And then it says, thank you for preserving and adding open space was a comment as well.
Great, thank you.
And a question came in for B and C, what would be the percentage of affordable housing?
Yeah, so these different, oh, go ahead, Rendell.
I'll speak to the current code requirements. So every development is required to offset or devote a certain amount of affordable housing. So right now it's 15%. And depending on whether it's for sale or for rent, it's 15% either moderate or 15% low. And so developers can go beyond that.
Thanks, Rendell.
And then there's a comment that alternative A is the best unless 26th Avenue is opened up to Campus Drive.
Great, thanks, Mary. Right, so if there are no more comments, I'm going to move on to the last two study areas. So the next study area, number 9, looks at Hillsdale, Norfolk area. So just to orient everyone, the Kaiser Medical Office Building is here on this parcel. This is a Hillsdale Inn across from that. And over on the right is the Marina Shopping Center. And so this is mostly a neighborhood commercial / regional commercial study area. So the different alternatives to consider, A, B, and C, it looks at preserving office medium use at the Kaiser parcel. For the Marina Plaza Shopping Center, there's 3 different land uses being considered. So in A, we're looking at commercial regional. B, we're looking at a mix of regional commercial with mixed use medium. And for C, we're looking at neighborhood commercial with regional commercial, kind of hybrid. And it looks like for Hillsdale N, proposing residential low, and this would be consistent with a planning project for residential units here. So some key things to note in alternative C, you'll see it produces the least net new homes, whereas B and A would be increasing by at least 100 to 290.
And then there's a comment or a question, just to clarify, does commercial neighborhood assume housing is included?
They could allow housing, right, Rendell? Neighborhood commercial?
Yeah, as a special use. Yeah. And I did get a direct message, I believe on the prior study area, on study area 6, just a comment. Thank you for preserving and adding open spaces.
Great.
That's for study area 6.
And then someone said, I like alternative B here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a smaller study area. I think a lot of the uses are set. So for example, this is the Atria Senior Living Assisted Living Center up here. So one thing that we looked at when developing these study areas is sort of acknowledging what the existing uses are.
And another comment is alternative C is the best. Hillsdale is impacted already and can't handle any more traffic. And more questions about infrastructure and where the traffic will go.
Yeah. Great comment. Did you already get the circulation facilitators?
They have.
Okay.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah. Yeah, but we'll take note of that. Thank you. Okay.
Before
How are
we
we doing
move
on
to
time?
10,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Before we go to 10, if we could go back to study area 6, I got a question
Okay.
regarding study area 6.
And then I have one more comment to study area 6, but I didn't want to confuse it.
Okay,
Perfect.
go ahead.
So a question is that they heard that 26th Avenue might open up to Campus Drive. Will that be for bike walking, bike/walking trail, or road for cars? Right now, under the Peninsula Heights project at least, it's not slated to open for vehicles. It would just be for pedestrians and cyclists.
Thank you. Awesome. Yes, great.
Actually, this was for the first, I think it was, I don't know which, the first study area you looked at. It said absolutely no higher density Pacific Boulevard is used as a cut through for commuters. So there was that comment too, just about the amount of traffic that comes through.
Thank you. Did you have another comment for study area 6, Mary?
No, it was for
Okay.
study area. I believe it's 2. I'm sorry, I'm getting myself confused now.
Okay.
But
No worries.
Sorry to make you jump around.
I
Yeah.
have one. I have another comment regarding the concern about traffic impact. Alternatives were with more homes near services like grocery store will help reduce traffic. We need to enable people to live without cars.
Thank you for that comment. Okay. So I'm gonna jump into the last study area, number 10. This is the Bridgepoint Shopping Center. And so it's characterized existing executive office uses around most of the Bridgepoint area. And where the Bridgepoint Shopping Center is and Home Depot, that's sort of a mixed use between regional, community commercial, and high density multifamily. And on the south is the Marriott Hotel. So that's the land use is regional, community commercial. And so in the different alternatives, A, B, and C, A looks at keeping Bridgepoint Shopping Center the same, no change. Whereas B looks at introducing low mixed use, and C would look at introducing medium residential uses. And most of the office uses are being kept. So A, B, and C, most of the high-rise office would be kept the same. Whereas in A, it's looking at changing one of the parcels to medium residential.
So I have a few comments. One about traffic that one person observes that most of the traffic is commuters to the East Bay cutting through our neighborhoods, and you can live without a car. I always will have one. Alternative C, please, is another comment. And then, is there a scenario, or can there be, where high density mixed use is allowed at Bridgepoint?
Yeah, I mean, well, tonight we're looking for feedback. So if that's what you'd like to share, we'll go ahead and record that.
Yeah, I think what's missing in the area is like just stores to buy food, and there's mostly restaurants and department stores, right? Just for people who live in that neighborhood, there isn't that much for normal everyday shopping, unless you go to Target, I guess. But like Safeway or coffee shops, things like that.
And then someone else agrees with the high density mixed use comment as well.
Thank you. I just want to touch back on that comment about the commercial uses. So it is zoned for regional commercial, which is really intended for bigger box department stores to attract, drivers, visitors from outside of San Mateo. And so that's, sort of just to give you an idea of what the different land uses, the intention behind it.
And then any chance thoughts of farmer market at the Bridgepoint area? Don't know if that's part of the scope of this meeting, but thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, great comment. We'll go ahead and keep that. I think that may be up to Bridgepoint Shopping Center to kind of host. How are we doing on time, Mary?
So
Great.
we have till 8:07, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, 8:07. So
Okay, great.
we're doing pretty well.
Great. Yeah, if anyone wants to, speak and share their comments, you're more than welcome to. We can also go back and look at past study areas if there's a particular interest from this group.
I would like to just ask something, and sorry that this is back on study area 6. We talked about the campus drive connecting to the Hillsdale, to 26. And I was wondering on campus drive, it's named campus drive, but it doesn't actually go to the College of San Mateo. And I was wondering if there's any possibility, if there can be infrastructure that campus drive does connect, at least for bikers and pedestrians over 92 or under 92, without having to go either up to Hillsdale or down another way.
I can take that comment down, and
yeah,
I think that might be a good one for the circulation group.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sean. Yeah, for some reason, it feels like we have the most time with this group now compared to other breakout rooms.
Yeah, I think and I think you get the hang of it a little bit better because the first one we didn't have enough time. And then you're kind of able to allocate your time a little bit better. But I have one more comment that says, I like this bike pedestrian connectivity comment for Campus Drive.
Thank you.
And then are all these new developments going to have a surcharge to pay for the increased use of our infrastructure?
Yes, every development project pays a certain amount of impact fees. So those are school impact fees, traffic impact fees meant to offset, park impact fees meant to offset the impact to city facilities.
And then for Bridgepoint, would it develop into something like Santana Row?
Yeah, hard to say, but if that's what you envision, we'll go ahead and put that as the comment or wish for the study area.
And Jennifer, that comment came from you. Is that what you're thinking about, or is it just a comment that you want to know if that's what it would look like?
Hi, yeah. I was wondering if they made it into mixed use with residential, living next to or behind a Target could be, not so great apartments, but if they developed into something a little bit more upscale and nicer, I think, cutting it in half or doing something different would be, a big plus.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and thanks for your comments. We'll make note of that. And one thing to note about the general plan land use. So, the city identifies, the land use, which paves way for potential projects, but how it gets developed, that's dependent on the developer and then going through the public, hearing process. So yeah, thanks for your comment.
So we have about 5 more minutes left, Linda. I'm not sure
Okay.
if there's anything else that people want to direct their comments towards or to look at another area again.
Yeah, feel free to, make comments in the chat if you want to focus on one of the past study areas. We can go ahead and also provide a recap of comments we've heard.
There is a question. Can you walk us through how to see these documents on our own?
Yeah, so on the Strive San Mateo website, I don't know if that's up now, but every participant, you should have received an email with all the workshop materials. And I haven't had a chance to see what they provided to participants, but yeah, after this meeting, everything will be posted on the website, strivesanmateo.org.
And I do believe that Strive San Mateo has the survey also where you can go in more in depth and do it yourself. And that's already up. So if you are looking today and you think of something, it gives you time to go through each of these survey areas individually and more in depth and at your own pace, and to look at it and to do the survey. And to actually invite your family and friends to do it as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Mary. Thanks for reminding. Yeah, we do have the online survey that will be posted, or it's actually already live. And so if you have, comments that you felt like you couldn't share today, or you need to sort of take time to think it through, you're welcome to share it with us later. And so we do have time to do a quick recap. So I'm going to do that. These are
Can you remind me how many more sessions we have tonight?
Just one.
Just one more.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
We're almost there. Nikki, is it pages 10?
Yes.
Okay. So starting at page 9?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. And so what we've heard tonight for study area 2, there was concern for traffic on Pacific Boulevard related to, increasing residential uses here. There was comments about 42nd Avenue being impacted, and also a thumbs up for alternative A. For alternative B, we heard comments, supporting more residential uses in proximity to services like grocery stores. Belmont Station would be helpful. I would support a comment we heard supporting higher density than what is listed in the alternatives. And for C, we heard, that staff should consider higher density and mixed use in the study area. Study area 6, Campus Drive. We've heard a lot of comments about circulation, so related to hiking, biking trails, protecting the views in this study area.
And I just received another comment about Pacific Boulevard, saying that they think it's an extension of Old County Road and it needs to be more bike friendly too.
Okay, thank you for that comment. We'll go ahead and get that added. Oh, there goes Nikki. So moving on, study area 9, Hillsdale, Norfolk area. We heard comments about, providing more homes near services so that we can really create a walking, less car dependent environment. There was a thumbs up for alternative B. And for C, we heard, that Hillsdale is already impacted and that they would like alternative C.
And Linda, I did get one comment. I think this originated for study area 10, but I think it applies in each area. It seems the earlier comment about making sure each community has needed support services like food, pharmacy, etc. Is there a way to make that possible? So just echoing the prior comment shared at study area 10.
Yeah, thanks, Rendell.
And we have one more minute, Linda.
Okay, so just really quickly, I know I wasn't able to answer some of the questions, but feel free to continue writing us. We have an email, generalplan@cityofsanmateo.org. We have a comment box at the Strive San Mateo website. So if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact us there. And just really quickly, just to end, for study area 10, the Bridgepoint Shopping Center area, there was comments that we heard about needing a grocery store, having a farmer's market. There was preference, maybe if you're to propose mixed use, make it more like Santana Row. Talks of allowing high density mixed use, and also a thumbs up for alternative C. Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
All right. So our next facilitator will be Julia Klein, and she should be joining us in Julia's already here. She's so prompt.
Hi. So with me is Nick.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my slide. Hold on one second. All right, can everybody see that?
It's yes, it's
It
good.
is visible,
Yes.
great. Okay, so for this segment, we will be covering 4 study areas. Study area 1, which is the northern segment of El Camino. Study area 4, which is downtown. Study area 5, which is San Mateo Drive, as well as the Peninsula corridor area. And then study area 7, which is both sides of Highway 101 in the North Shoreview and Shoreview area. So you've seen these 2 questions, so I won't read them again. My name is Julia Klang, as Mary has indicated, and with me is Nick Hamilton, Senior Planner. And just real quickly, I think you've seen this slide in the other presentations as well. Primarily, we're going to cover all 4 of the different study areas. We'll try to be judicious with our time. I recommend that we cover the smaller areas first, and then come back to study area 4 with the downtown area, which is the largest geographic area. We'll recommend that everybody use chat to submit their comments and questions, and that way we have a record of them and can read them to everybody that's in this room. And then again, the key differences between alternative A, B, and C is that alternative A has the least change in terms of designations and the lowest residential growth. Alternative B has the second highest residential growth and spreads that growth across more evenly across all 10 of the study areas. And then alternative C has the highest residential growth, concentrates that growth and the tallest heights and densities near the transit corridors on Railroad and then downtown. So study area A, again, this is the El Camino North segment. The land use designations currently are medium and high density multifamily, as well as executive office with a residential overlay of high density. And in terms of the 3 alternatives, what we have is alternative A, B, and C. Alternative A, in terms of the net new jobs and housing, is shown in the table below here. And that same information is reflected for alternative B and C. In terms of the colors, which represent different land uses, the key difference between the 3 different alternatives are in terms of the land use designations is if you look on alternative A, which is that first map, you'll see that the color includes this sort of medium color blue, which is reflective of mixed use medium, and that's at El Camino and Tilton. And then there's a dark brown residential designation down here, south of that. In alternative B at El Camino and Poplar, you'll see that there's a color that's red that reflects commercial neighborhood commercial type uses. And then you'll see that in the southern segment, there's also a dark brown color designation for high residential. In alternative C at Tilton and El Camino, you'll see that there's a dark blue color, and that's mixed use high, as well as that residential high down south of that. And so those are the key differences in terms of the different residential designations. You will note that residential medium category is reflective of buildings that are 4 to 7 stories versus the residential high designation is reflective of buildings that are 8 stories and higher. And that same range of building heights is also reflected in the mixed use medium and mixed use high designations. Does anybody have any questions or comments about these alternatives?
I have no comments coming in yet, Julia.
I think we're all waiting for downtown.
Okay, so let's be down to the next one then. I'll give it going once, going twice, no take. Okay, let's go down to study area 5.
Somebody did comment that alternative B is best for this area, for that last
Study area
one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Okay, so study area 5, this is Peninsula Avenue area. Again, the mix of land use designation currently is medium and high density multifamily. There is regional commercial, as well as neighborhood commercial and office. And what we're seeing in terms of the alternatives is primarily, preservation of commercial here in the Safeway Wood Lake Shopping Center area. And that is changing to mixed use medium in alternative B, and then along the stretch of Peninsula Avenue, that is changing to mixed use, the different mixed use low. This is the lighter blue color here. And then in terms of alternative A and alternative B, this middle portion along Poplar Avenue and San Mateo Drive, you'll see that the purple and the red color are pretty much the same between alternative A and alternative C. With alternative B in that same area, El Camino and Poplar, that area is designated as mixed use medium.
I'm just going back to study area 1. There was one more comment that there needs to be an upgrade on traffic lights as many accidents are at the intersections there. So if we can add that, I'm sorry to jump around here, but that was one more comment that just came in.
For study area 1. Thank you for that comment. Do we have any comments or questions about study area 5?
There is a comment, I like alternate C for study area 5 in respect to blue near the Safeway. And then someone else also agrees that alternative C is best.
Okay, and so for today's meeting, we are noting down your comments, but we're also not asking people to choose. At this point, our primary question is, are these the right range of alternatives to study? So while we are noting your comments, we are definitely curious about whether you guys feel that this is the right range of alternatives to study. And then if there's anything that we're missing that we need to consider, those are the key 2 questions.
And there doesn't seem to be any comments right now, Julia.
Okay, are there any questions about the information that's on the maps?
No.
Okay, so then let's go down to study area 7. So this is along the Amplet and Highway 101 area with North Shore View and Shore View. Existing uses are medium and high density designations for land use, and then surface commercial and neighborhood commercial. And these are reflected in pink and the red colors. And in terms of the alternatives, what we're looking at is existing uses along Amplet are that service commercial category. And so alternative A is showing that mix of uses still reflected here in the pink. That is in that same area in alternative B is showing a different color in terms of residential medium, and that's this orange color, as well as residential high. And as I mentioned earlier, residential medium and residential high, it's reflective of different building heights. Residential medium is 4 to 7 stories, and then residential high is 8 stories and taller. And so alternative C, you'll see that this is that medium residential. And then the key difference in terms of the Shoreview Shopping Center area is that in alternative A, a good portion of that is mixed use low, whereas in alternative B, that's changing to mixed use medium. And then in alternative C, a portion of that is changing to mixed use high. So those are the key differences between the 3 different alternatives for study area 7. Are there any comments or questions?
Give it a second, but I don't see any comments right now, Julia, and I'll let you know in a second if I see anything else.
Okay. And so this information will be available on Stride. And so it's okay if you know, think about these maps later on, and maybe if you're walking in these neighborhoods of the city and you come up with a question or comment later on, you can always go back to the Strive San Mateo website. There's an email at the end, at the bottom of the page, where you can also submit your comments. And so you can always, you know, if you think of something later on, you can always still submit those comments.
There is a question, Julia, and I also do want to let you know that we are halfway through this session. Does 4 to 7 stories for residential medium mean 4 to 7 stories of living space and parking in subterranean or adjacent?
It could be a combination of any of that, depending on how, and this, it doesn't happen right now, you know, at the stage that we're at right now. But in terms of the overall, what we're saying is the overall building itself is within that range. Individual developments can propose different scenarios, but the overall massing is within that 4 to 7 range.
And then, and one other question is, do we have an idea how much the high rises in these alternatives might stand out because there aren't any equivalent buildings nearby?
So that's a good comment. We don't have that information currently. That is part of the analysis that would need to happen at the next stage when we get into technical analysis. And this is a good comment so that we can factor that in when we do the analysis.
When you add residential, what are the requirements for parking for each new home?
So we do have the zoning code, which has existing parking requirements, depending on the type of residential development. And so that information is already available on the city's website. Going forward though, you know, if you have comments about, you know, the city to look at the different parking ratios, I think that's a comment that you can make so that we can consider that as part of the technical analysis that we need to do and the zoning code implementation.
And
but
then,
we're not there right now in terms of that, that level of detail.
And then there's a couple other comments. If the 4 to 7 story residentials are constructed adjacent to a highway, would that mean the highway walls would need to be constructed taller? And then a couple additional comments. The more housing close to downtown, the better. We should require less parking for housing closer to downtown and Caltrain.
So thank you for the comment. And in terms of the question about, you know, taller buildings adjacent to the highway or any other uses, that's a good comment in terms of the technical analysis that needs to be done. So we'll note that down. Nicholas is noting that down.
See, we have a hand raised, but also I did not catch the very last statement you said.
So go ahead, Connie, if you want to go ahead and speak.
If you're not able to unmute, perhaps you can enter the question into chat.
Yeah. Connie, are you able to unmute yourself?
I don't think it was me.
Oh, okay. Your hand's raised though. So I'll just, no, that's okay.
Mistake.
I'll lower your hand. No worries.
That's
fine. No worries. Okay. So Julia, we have about 6 more minutes.
Okay. So are there any other comments or questions?
I don't see any.
Okay. Does anybody want us to go back to any of the other 3 study areas? Okay. Everybody's doing really well. We're ahead of schedule. No? Okay, so let's see. Are there any thoughts about how the city has looked at sort of the connections?
Julia, there's it says there are a couple comments. Require the residents of these new high density developments to agree not to own a car, and then don't keep us waiting downtown. I thought you didn't you go through downtown area or not?
We could go back to that. So I didn't know if anybody had any additional comments on the other ones, but it didn't sound like it. So let's go ahead and go to downtown. So downtown, the primary difference between the downtown areas are really the historic districts are being preserved, and then the areas that are changing are these darker blue areas that are going from mixed use medium to mixed use high. And so the changes are in study area 4 in alternative B, which is this, the medical center area is going from lighter blue to darker blue, and that's reflective of going from mixed use medium to mixed use high. And then that darker blue is reflected also on the other side of the railroad tracks and along 4th Avenue corridor. So those are the primary uses that are changing. You will see that there's along the periphery, there's some changes to the residential that transitions from different uses down to this lighter orange color. And it's reflective of the lower density residential that's in the white area. That's both in the central and the north central area. Are there any comments or questions about this?
There is just a preference for alternative C. High density should be downtown as it is in all cities. And does, another comment is, does this include B Street closures?
That's a good comment. This does not, what we're talking about in terms of land use designation does not preclude that. It's more focusing on the individual properties. The right-of-way comment about B Street closure, that's for the streets. That's a good comment for the circulation part of it. And so we'll note that down and transfer that comment to the circulation group. Any other comments or questions?
I have none coming right now, Julia. Oh, Dana has her hand raised.
Sorry,
Dana,
I'm trying to type. I'm such a slow typer. You guys are moving on. We can type it. So I have a question. If you're going over to like it looks like the mixed use high, does that include, you know, like cute little shops on like the first floor? Is that what mixed use high is? And then people live above?
Mixed use definitely is a combination of different uses, and it may include ground floor retail and then, you know, office and or, you know, residential above. So it provides that opportunity to mix up the uses.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
there is another comment. I like alternative C, but want to see even further expansion of high density housing and mixed uses downtown.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Are there additional or any other type of uses or anything else that we're missing from these 3 maps that we should study?
A comment about bike parking downtown, just bike parking downtown, but that's it.
Okay, that comment Nicholas is recording the comment, and that comment will be transferred to the circulation group.
And then another comment, is there a study to look at the limiting of sunlight on streets that will, sorry, there's more comments coming in. The sunlight on streets that will be present when high rises are built in Plan C. And then there's a comment about wanting more intentional green space within downtown would be great. And then need to address the parking for the increased density is another comment.
So all 3 comments are good information for us to have. Nicholas is noting those down, and that will be part of the technical studies that we'll need to do. So we don't have those studies currently, but those comments are good for us so that we have that information as we're digging into the technical studies in the next phase. Any other questions or comments?
How would this study also include things like having like open plazas for people to congregate downtown?
That's a good comment for the technical studies.
What would it be zoned or colored if it was such a thing?
It depends on how that is done. Public space versus private open space, you know, and so there's different ways of doing that. And so we don't have that study done yet, but in general, I understand your comment. So we'll note that down and be able to look into that, you know, during the technical evaluation.
In general, I like a lot of the stuff Redwood City's done over the last 10, 12 years. You know, making it easy for people to gather downtown.
Duly noted as a comment. Thank you for that example.
I'll second that for sure. Or more like pedestrian friendly, close down the streets just like they are now. Keep it like that. That's my vote.
Okay, thank you for those comments.
There's a comment that there's a lot of empty space downtown already. Building more mixed use high will flood the area. And then also a support for pedestrian plazas downtown. And another for, I agree with, an open area downtown would be great.
Thank you for all those comments. Any other comments or questions?
So I have another comment here. This is Dana again. So Julia, you haven't been with us the whole 4 times, but I think everyone can agree with me that we've all been like more pedestrian friendly, more bike friendly, fewer cars, you know, like walk to your local grocery store type of lifestyle, you know, and all be healthy and use transit. So I think, you know, Mary, you've probably been listening to us, and I just, you know, I echo that until my face turns blue. Yay, go San Mateo.
Duly noted. Nicholas is typing away. So thank you for those comments.
And I think we're going to actually be joining back in a minute or so. So if anybody else has more comments that they would like to, now's your chance to, you could probably just be best to unmute yourself and say something instead of having to type it in if you have anything else to say.
And then just one last pitch. You can go to strivesanmateo.org following this workshop if you have any additional comments or questions to go ahead and enter them. There's an email there for you to submit your email questions.
Are there links to the other studies that you're referring us to, like technical studies, bike study, things like that?
Those technical studies, once we actually do them, we will definitely post them on the website. Everything will be accessible on the website. You know, so that's the sole source to go to.
And the breakout rooms are closing right now. So just know that you're all going to be pushed back. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, Lindsay, does it look like most folks are back now from the breakout rooms?
Yes, we have all the breakout rooms have closed. Everyone's rejoined us.
Fantastic. Well, before I share my screen again for just 2 closing slides, let me thank you all very much, both facilitators, note takers, all the support staff, and especially residents and citizens of San Mateo who are here with us. Thank you so much. I heard really amazing conversations in the breakout rooms that I visited, and I was really impressed with your thoughtfulness and your attention and your ideas. So thanks so much for that. It makes a huge difference in making this a better plan and a better process. So we noticed that and we're really grateful for it. I'm going to, as I said, share my screen. Again, just to provide you with a little bit of information briefly about next steps. This is going to be at the very end. So we have the online survey that I mentioned earlier. That's up at least through May 2nd. But again, if we really hear demand for more time, certainly make that happen at strivesanmateo.org if you want to share any other ideas about the alternatives. Anytime you have questions or comments about the general plan process, please contact us at generalplan@cityofsanmateo.org. That email address will reach all the right people who can help answer your questions. We have a whole bunch more upcoming meetings. So this Saturday, we're doing this same meeting again, Saturday morning for folks who prefer Saturdays to weeknights. So if you want to offer additional input, you're welcome to come back. If you have folks you know who you think might want to offer their input, please let them know about the workshop on Saturday morning. Please know that if you do want to join that meeting, you're going to need a new registration link. You can't reuse the same link that you used for this meeting. So if you want to do both, we welcome you, but please do register for both meetings so that you get the Saturday link. Then next week on Thursday is the meeting all about ARENA. That's a county-wide meeting from the Let's Talk Housing folks. RENA is the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. So if you heard about that tonight and you're curious and you want to learn more or contribute more, please check out that meeting on Thursday, April 22nd. It's not a general plan meeting, but these topics are closely related, of course. Similarly, on Tuesday, May 4th, another meeting about the housing element, an introduction to the housing element. That's the third time that meeting will be held. So if you've been to one of the other two, it's going to be that same meeting again. And if you know someone who's looking for an introduction to the housing element, could be a good way to start. That's Tuesday, May 4th. On Monday, May 17th, we're going to be taking a general plan status update to the City Council. So you're welcome to join us there and provide your comments to the council. As always, that is going to be another virtual meeting. And then on Tuesday, May 18th, we have a general plan subcommittee meeting scheduled where we will go through a very similar exercise with them. And we will also share with them the feedback that we've gotten at this Thursday meeting and on Saturday morning's meeting as well. We're going to be looking out to dates with the Planning Commission and the City Council in June and July this summer. And by the time we get to the City Council meeting, our goal will be to ask the council to give us some final direction on refining and finalizing this range of alternatives so that we can launch the next important step of doing the evaluation. And then finally, last but definitely not least, we would really love to know your thoughts about this workshop. We thought really hard about how to put this together for you. I know it was a lot to cover. I really, again, applaud all of you for participating in this and being so willing to share your time with us. And if you have suggestions on what we could do better, we really want to hear that. So if you snap a picture of this QR code with your phone right now, or if you take this link, you will be able to provide us with your feedback, and that's very important to us in doing a good job with our future workshops.
Joanna, I just want to point out,